Hello, lovely writers, and welcome to this week's Writerly Wednesday. I wanted to dive into something that I've had lots of chats about before with my Writerly community, but let's have a refresher because I think all of us struggle with this one at one time or another. And that is the question, which is best? Rather, which is best for me? And I've got another caveat to that question as well. Traditional publishing or self-publishing? If you've been here for a while, you will know that I'm going to look at both sides. I'm going to give you some slides on the pros and cons to both, and let's just have a chat about how we need to change the way that we look at this question and dispel some myths along the way. So, if you are new here, I'm Anjanette Fennell, a former agent and a writing mentor who helps people both start, finish, and feel great about their books, no matter which path into publishing that they take. So let's dive in. Traditional publishing, that's the one that a lot of us are thinking about, right? We love that. We see New York Times bestsellers or USA Today bestsellers, Wall Street Journal bestsellers. We see those books in the bookshops and we see promos all over the place and we feel like, that's what I want. If I finish my book, that's what I'm striving for. So let's talk a little bit about what's great about traditional publishing and then some of those things that are maybe not so great. Okay, what is great is there is gravitas to it, right? We want to see maybe even one of the big 5 imprints on the spine of our book and know that we've got that sort of backing where somebody says, this is an amazing book. You'll get that from an agent and then hopefully they sell it on to one of those great publishers. It feels good to know that this manuscript has been read by lots and lots of people who are in the know and they say it's good enough for readers, right? That's one of the things that we like about traditional publishing, that gravitas. Also, that idea of support. You've got the support of a publishing company that's been running potentially for decades, but even if they're slightly newer, a publishing company that has multiple people that are there primed and ready to support your book in the marketplace. And then also they actually have a sales team. Presumably this sales team is going to go out and sell your book. That's amazing. People out there talking to booksellers about your book. What could be better? Well, here are some of the downsides to it. Number one, there is a real lack of control, and that can be good. We can say, I don't mind what my cover looks like. I don't mind about all the editorial choices. I don't mind XYZ. I say that may be true, but it can actually be quite difficult when you get to it. And the truth is that you're going to be signing a contract that you definitely need support in reading through the contract and making sure that you definitely have a way out. That's reversion of rights. We want to make sure that every author has the ability to terminate an agreement that doesn't feel good. But you can't just do it on a whim. There has to be a reason. But truthfully, even if you hate the cover that they come up with, that's it. It's not in your control. That cover, they can get your feedback, but ultimately it will be decided by the publisher with feedback from their sales team, maybe distributors, and they could go for an idea that you don't like. Now, if you've gone with a traditional publisher, it's because you believe that they have the experience that means it's going to sell really well. But it can still be challenging if they're highlighting a portion or a theme of the book that just doesn't feel right to you. Ultimately, not your choice. No control on that front. Equally, you can give your editorial wants and likes. It is a process that's back and forth, but ultimately they have say, so they can cut something out if they want to. I'm not going to say that that's really common, but it's totally possible. And the other part, the biggest part perhaps, is that you only get 10 to maybe, if you're real lucky, 15, but most of the time it's going to be about 10% royalty. Now, depending on who you go with, and some publishers have stopped paying out advances, I always argue it's not about the size of the advance, but how well and how easily you'll be able to earn that out and start making money. So ultimately, we want you to make good money. but you're only getting 10%. So even if you get a great advance, number one, 10% means you're going to be waiting a while to earn out that royalty. And ultimately, even when the publisher will eventually stop promoting your book, because all of them do, maybe it's in their catalog, but that's not promotion. That's just like it exists. When they stop promoting your book and you're out there potentially selling your book, person to person even, you're only making 10%. And that's it. That's never going to change unless in your contract you have graduated royalties, which is something that I absolutely recommend. But even so, it's still going to go up by these little tiny percentage points. So that's it. That's all you're going to get. 10 to maybe 15% royalties. The other thing that I want you to look at is what I just mentioned, and that is every publisher, no matter how large, has a certain amount of time and capacity to use that support team to help sell your book. And if they are large, they are publishing multiple books at any given time, and their attention is not solely on your book. So biggest bang for your buck, coming out maybe a few months before your book is launched, and then maybe, if you're lucky, for a few months after. You might get some media, and this is all traditional publishing focused promotion and PR opportunities. There's lots more we can talk about in another episode about how you can supplement what they're doing, but that's it. A short amount of time, and then that's it. They have to move on. It's not that they are being mean, and certainly they will reprint your book if, for example, your book were optioned and were going to be turned into film or television. They will print more and maybe do a little burst. We've seen that with authors like Liane Moriarty or Colleen Hoover, who's just had a massive resurgence because of Book Talk fame. But by and large, once you're done with that small promotion period, that's it. And you are going to have to want to get out there and sell your own book. They want you to do that too. So you're not actually getting out of doing any marketing yourself. You just get a little bit of a boost by using their sales and marketing team. Okay, let's move over to self-publishing. Some of the pros and cons. With self-publishing, you have control over every single aspect, from editorial, book cover design, what does the internal formatting look like, everything about it. Are you going to have live links in your electronic copy? All of that. Your control all the time, every time. That's pretty sweet. You have creative freedom. That's included with that control, of course. Like I said, book cover design, which designer you go with, which design you choose. With self-publishing, whether you go for large print runs or you go the way that most do, which is print on demand, this gives you even more control because it's print on demand. You can change things out. So even if you make one choice now, you can shift things later. You can change the book cover. You can add an endorsement to the front if you get those, all sorts of things. Full control. And best of all, you get 100% royalties, as close to that as possible, taking out any production costs that are involved, right? That's really, really sweet, especially if you're looking to have a long-term writing career. Why? Because you're going to continue to sell, and as time goes on, hopefully more and more people will find out about your book, whether you are actively promoting a single title or another title. People who become fans are going to buy your back catalog, and that includes those other books. You get 100% of the royalties. This is where self-publishers are becoming full-time writers because they get all the royalties once they put in that front-end work and then set up their sales and marketing on sort of a cycle. That's it. They're making 100%. They're not having to give any away except for where they want to. If they want to pay for ads, they can pay for ads. But 100%. Massive difference to 10%, right? Let's look at some of the negatives and the reasons that most people decide they don't want to go self-publishing. Number one, I'm just going to say it feels like an entire new job. Like, who's got time for that? I just want to do the writing. That's it. I'm going to have to learn all this other stuff about an industry I don't know. And I don't know what I don't know, and that feels overwhelming. So that overwhelm is probably the primary reason that most people don't go self-publishing. Also, it doesn't have the gravitas. If you've published under your own name or even set up a publishing company, sometimes it feels like you're running against the preconceived notions about somebody who self-publishes, might make these assumptions about you. But that's all mindset, really, really. The truth is that as a self-publisher, you can spend the money to get your book well edited. Again, you're spending the money, but if you're making 100%, it can balance out in the end. Ultimately, though, that can feel like the biggest leap. This, I don't know about it and I haven't got the gravitas. I'm doing it myself and everybody's going to know that I didn't get a traditional publisher. Here's the thing though. I don't know if you've heard of Seth Godin, but if you haven't, go look him up. He has gone from traditional and self-published. He does both. A lot of the most successful writers these days open themselves up to that possibility. Even the most successful authors do not have every single manuscript that they've written accepted by a traditional publisher. And some of them decide to take those other manuscripts and publish them themselves for any number of reasons, some of which I've outlined already. So just because one is self-published doesn't mean the quality isn't there. And in fact, there are some wild stories lately, including an over $30 million Kickstarter from somebody who's self-published. Guess what? He does not care. Nobody cares, clearly, because he's made over $30 million with a Kickstarter fund to write a series of 4, maybe slightly more, but 4 books for his fans. He has a direct line between himself and his readers. What does he need a publisher for? He's doing just fine. He doesn't need the gravitas. He's got it himself now, right? The other thing that I've sort of mentioned is that learning curve. So yes, it can feel like I don't want to do it all alone. I do want a team that's already experienced in doing it. The challenge here is that even if you have that team in traditional publishing, you don't know what's going on in people's personal lives or even within the company. So they may not be at their best. They want to. I'm not trashing anyone. I love traditional publishing. I love my big 5 publishers and those individuals who are at those publishers. However, we're humans and sometimes we really kill it. And other times, maybe we've gotten sick or whatever, and other people are off sick, and so we're overwhelmed. In the self-publishing area, though, it's that learning curve that feels like a real con. If I'm going to have to learn everything, that feels really hard, and I don't want to do it. So, having looked at the pros and cons of both, I want to add that caveat that I mentioned early on in the video, and that is not just should I go traditional or self-publishing, but what is best for this project? I sort of mentioned that even people like Seth Godin have done both, probably Tim Ferriss. I haven't got them all to mind, but the truth is it can be different depending on each particular manuscript. And what I want you to know is as the creator, you are in control the entire time, including if you sell to a traditional publisher and then you revert rights back to you. Other very successful authors have done this as well. They get the rights back from that publisher and then they rejig it and they publish it through their own company or under their own name and sell it because they have created that direct relationship between themselves and the readers. Distribution used to be the biggest reason why it was better to go traditional versus self-publishing, but things have changed in the past 10, 20 years, and distribution is absolutely available to more and more indie authors. I would also say this, and this is my personal experience, so I'm just adding that. Selling books is really about connecting and can often build that groundswell for success with person-to-person connection. And that means making these great relationships with your libraries and your local booksellers and putting yourself out there, taking risks about where you're going to sell it. This is whether you're traditionally published or not, by the way. Making those relationships can be the difference between selling relatively well or creating a bestseller for yourself. So have a thought with this book, whatever project you're thinking of right now. Might the best path be traditional publishing for it? Or do I get an inkling that I'd really like to try self-publishing? There is no single best path, and there is no one way to go that will get you all of your dreams and your expectations met. But it's about making the best decision for you and that project on the day. Do you have any questions? If you like this video, please click that like button. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of the videos that I get. If you ring that little bell, you'll get all the notifications. But I'd love to hear from you. Have you traditionally and or self-published? Do you have any sort of remaining concerns about, should I go this way, should I go that way, that was a big mistake, this is a big mistake? Maybe you did hybrid publishing. How did that turn out for you? I would love to hear from you. As always, if you have any questions you want me to address on a Writerly Wednesday, please put them in the comments below or send me an email, anjanette@storyislife.com. Until next time, I hope you have a beautiful writerly week. Bye, writers.